everyone. I realized with the previous episode that it may work better if I also shared what I understand from the reading of the book, as well as reading the original text. So these book studies will come in two parts from now on, and I'm always going to include the little timestamp down below for those who wish to skip ahead and where the pure text begins, where Eddie's writing begins. So I'm going to start my more straightforward translations from last week's personal note to readers and Eddie's 4 observations for the reader to consider. Eddie shares 4 observations, ones that he has hard-earned through over half a century of his intense involvement in spiritual and musical societies, and working in diverse roles across numerous industries as well. They are, number 1, we work to transcend the intellect to arrive at the tiniest bit of wisdom and actual truth. Great music and art can draw one closer to source than a dozen books might do. Consciousness is transmitted through the human being and filtered by the brain. The brain is consciousness's instrument of expression. It is not the producer nor the generator of consciousness. In Eddie's understanding, AI, artificial intelligence, will not be able to overtake human intelligence. And on a brighter note, there are some modern-day enlightened scientists and philosophers attempting to build bridges between spirit, mind, and matter, arguing for a global dialogue about a science of consciousness without restricting consciousness to simply mainstream neuroscience. Second observation is for humans to always maintain a universal outlook, which demands a variety of approaches to draw on diverse streams of wisdom, and always endeavoring to discover their unifying thread and to seek out the source of the teaching. Sectarianism and dogma are the greatest curses that have rotted through not only religion, but also science, philosophy, and esotericism. There is absolutely not only one book or one teacher of any period in history that can be upheld as the absolute gold standard of truth. Truth is best served by both intellect and intuition, the way of science in hand with the path of mysticism. Our attempting to establish any ultimate church of truth based on any one authority who is propped up by self-appointed bishops and popes would be an insult to actual truth. And third, it is a huge mistake to believe, as Eddie did and as I did too, that members of spiritual organizations are by definition a cut above the common folk in generosity and sincerity and kindness and peace and love. Eddie clarifies that he has experienced much genuine fraternal behavior from friends and colleagues throughout his decades in the wide world of industry, and these are folks who have never heard of or would even want to hear about Theosophy or esoteric science, let alone occultism. Politics and backstabbing, corruption and greed are nothing new to commercial organizations, but they are alive and well. And they are even more insidious in many spiritual societies, the very ones who profess universal love and brotherhood with the sole aim to selflessly serve humanity without distinction of race, creed, sex, caste, or color, and simply share the truth. When they stray away from the path due to selfishness and greed and pride and the desire for control, this is a far more substantial fall from grace and a greater dereliction of duty than would be the case in ordinary secular life, and could not be further from the ideals and spiritual vision of their founders. The only way to change society, let alone the world, is to start with oneself. And that is rarely achieved merely by piously quoting long passages about service to humanity from sacred texts or revered books from the podium in dusty libraries and lodges. We need look to no one except our own higher self and be prepared for loneliness. It is the law. It is lonely on the journey with the voice of the silence, the loneliness within, as what I call the falling away. That's me, Anne. I call it the falling away, when what we once knew and loved and identified with falls away as we evolve. We must have patience and endurance and fortitude as we remember that pain is the usher of wisdom if we allow it to be. And solitude does not necessarily mean that one has to be a monk. and silence and inner study can take place alongside and even within the chaos of life. We become the path as we progress, and as we reach inward in the application of the ancient wisdom, we create the path. It's not outside of us. This is just my understanding, me, Anne. And the endless work on self can sometimes feel like isolation, but we are never separate from one another. These ancient teachings, this perennial philosophy, the eternal wisdom, by its very nature, provides the solutions to all of life's problems, no matter the era. The solutions lie in the reforming, refining, and evolution of our character, our very nature, internally and through a dedicated, courageous, open-minded, diligent self-study, self-reflection, self-analysis, and then self-correction, which leads to self-transformation. Not one of the great sages or avatars or teachers wasted their lives preaching the lure of peace on earth by inventing techniques and systems to improve the world's politics, economics, and daily life at the routine and everyday level. They all instructed us, humanity, to know ourselves, to find out and know who we truly are. Not the lower personality, the earthly ego of separation, but who we truly are. Those with wisdom know that there is only one way for humanity to save the world. We must all courageously and thoroughly look within our own hearts and minds and work tirelessly toward self-transformation. We can change the horrors of our external world, which has spilt rivers of blood and caused untold suffering, when we finally change the inner revolution of our minds. So I shall now read to you from it's lowercase xv15 in book 1 about Eddie. So this needs no translation. Eddie Villamoria is a doctor of philosophy, a fellow of the Institution of Mechanical Engineers, FEI, a fellow of the Royal Society for Arts. Eddie was born in India and educated at the universities of London, Sussex, and Oxford. Eddie Villamoria presents an unusual blend of experience in the fields of science, the arts, and philosophy. Professionally, Eddie is an award-winning engineer and was a consultant to the petrochemical, oil and gas, transport, and construction industries. He was project manager and head of design for major innovative projects such as the Channel Tunnel, the London Underground System, and offshore installations. He has also worked in safety and environmental engineering and management for several Royal Navy projects, including the Queen Elizabeth aircraft carrier and the fleet of river-class offshore patrol vessels. A student of the Perennial Philosophy for over half a century, Eddie has given courses and lectured extensively in the UK, as well as internationally in California, the Netherlands, India, and Australia. He has organized and chaired conferences in order to encourage the cross-fertilization of the ideas in the fields of science, religion, and practical philosophy. He has worked as education manager for the Theosophical Society in Australia, developing courses, study papers, researching, lecturing, and organizing international conferences, as well as supervising the Research Library, the National Media Library, National Members Lending Library, and the development of the website. Eddie has published extensively in the disciplines of science, engineering, and the esoteric philosophy. His book, The Snake in the Rope, was awarded a prize by the Scientific and Medical Network, and that was on which now he's a board director and an advisor to the Galileo Commission of the network, of the Science and Medical Network. Eddie is also a trustee and a council member of the Francis Bacon Society. He's a busy guy. An enthusiastic glider pilot for many years, Eddie is also a choral singer and dedicated pianist of concert standard. The benefit of all of this, Eddie's work in science and engineering, is that it has enabled him to understand and approach interdisciplinary problems in an innovative and lateral thinking manner under time and budgetary constraints. It has also provided the necessary teamworking, supervision, and management skills with the opportunity to actuate eternal principles on an organizational level, in line with his belief that spirituality is reserved not only for quiet retreats, but it also applies to daily working life. Yes, the outcome of Eddie's involvement in music and the Perennial Philosophy is a discernment of the higher laws governing all life and existence at all levels, and the necessity of striving to live with integrity according to this realization. I absolutely love Eddie. I find him the most genuine, sincere, humble, beautiful soul I have ever had a chance to work with. That's why I'm doing all of this. I believe in him. Now, he is not full of himself. I get absolutely no ego at all. He is a dedicated student of the perennial wisdom, and he has written this book over a period of 20 years to get this out. He's not doing this to make money. You don't have to buy the book. You don't. This is an instruction manual that I think should be available for everyone. He has compiled and synthesized and explained the ancient teachings that belong to all of us and solely to none. Eddie didn't just come up with this stuff. He's organized it, he's a student of it, and he's applying it. He actually walks the walk, not just talks the talk. So I met him when we did an interview on this channel a couple years back, and I just adore him, and I believe in this, and I found this to be one of the purest sources of Theosophy, or the Perennial Philosophy, the ancient wisdom. It's all right here. It's science, religion, philosophy, and we are studying the first book of 1,000 pages, little over 1,000 pages, Unfolding Consciousness, Exploring the Living Universe and Intelligent Powers in Nature and Humans. And our first volume is a Panoramic Survey, Science Contrasted with the Perennial Philosophy on Consciousness and Man. So this is going to take a long time if we're doing little bits at a time. But I'm thinking we do this together. If you find this resonates with you, then I think you should join us for the other book studies. It doesn't cost you anything. Or look for the sources. I'll link back so you can actually take a look. And you can see Isaac Newton in here, Blavatsky is in here, Paul Brunton is in here, Einstein is in here. They're all in here. Paracelsus, Plato, all of them, all the religions. Anyway, look for the commonalities. We can actually find the truth in there. He talks about the common thread. That's what he's talking about. So next week, we'll move forward to The Forward by David Lorimer, and I will translate when necessary. When Eddie is on a roll, sometimes it's difficult to follow along in a conversational tone. Sometimes it's best for the reader to read that. So what I'm going to do is I'll translate to the best of my ability. I've been studying this for 15 years, but there's still so much to learn. I'll translate in as simple terms as I can, but remember, everybody has a different take on it. We're all parts of the tapestry, all different colors of this tapestry. So the way I look at it might not be the way you look at it, but it's how I understand it and how important I believe it is to have this instruction for our time on earth, especially right now. I believe in this. I believe in these ancient teachings. And it doesn't come from just one author. It does have an original source, but look for the commonalities and we can trace that back and see the common thread. I'll see you next week. I love you very much.